What if everything you ever knew, your cities, your history, even the night sky, could change in the span of 8 minutes? It began as a whisper in the darkness, a flicker across distant stars. Then, without warning, the sky split open and the world burned. No warning, no mercy, just 8 minutes of chaos. As a force beyond imagination descended from the void and shattered everything we believed invincible. But what if those 8 minutes were just the beginning? What if, in the ashes of defeat, humanity found a new kind of courage, a reason to rise? To fight, to forge alliances with ancient enemies and forgotten races across the stars? 8 minutes to lose everything. A lifetime to fight for it back. Would you surrender to fear, or join the rebellion that turned the tide of the galaxy? The first sign was a shadow across Europa's ice fields, a black eclipse blotting out Jupiter's fierce eye. For the 7 billion souls scattered across the Earth Confederation, the end came not as a whisper, but as a thunderclap that cracked the sky. Commander Raylan Sato had served for 16 years in the Confederation Navy. But nothing in his training had prepared him for this. The orbital defense grid lit up with alarms as hundreds, no, thousands, of unidentified objects broke through the Kuiper Belt perimeter. Automated guns fired, but the enemy ships moved like flickering ghosts, warping through space, unleashing storms of light that vaporized entire defense platforms. On Earth, city skies turned to fire. The great spires of New Lagos collapsed in seconds, dust and ash falling like rain. In the lunar colonies, airlocks melted from focused energy beams. Millions suffocated in the silence of space. Raylan's comms burst with static and desperate voices, frantic orders, calls for help, the crackling hiss of death. All this in 8 minutes. And then, silence. The enemy ships, as abruptly as they had appeared, vanished from every sensor. It was as if they'd never existed, leaving only wreckage and the haunted silence of a world in shock. But Raylan was still breathing. On the shattered bridge of the dreadnought Leviathan, he wiped blood from his brow and struggled to his feet. The ship's AI, damaged but alive, flickered to life. "Commander, enemy presence has ceased. Casualty estimates, catastrophic. Earth's surface is." The AI trailed off. Running calculations, data streams corrupted by radiation. Raylan gripped the command rail and forced himself to focus. Someone had to fight back. A transmission broke through the static. It was Dr. Mira Vallon, a xenolinguist on Europa's research station. "This is Vallon. If anyone can hear me, I have information. The attack patterns, they match old Sagan array signals. We're not the first they've done this to. There's a pattern. We can fight back, if we move now." Across the battered remnants of humanity, survivors rallied. Fighter squadrons formed up around crippled carriers. Ground troops, battered but unbroken, prepared for evacuation to hidden redoubts. In orbit, the Leviathan's reactors sputtered, but Raylan forced the engines to life. "All ships, this is Commander Sato. The enemy hit us, but we're not finished. Gather at Lagrange Point 4. If you can fly, if you can shoot, get up here. We fight back now." In distant sectors, alien eyes watched, some curious, some amused, others afraid. The Zhayr Dominion, whose ships had unleashed the storm, recalibrated their sensors. Their war was not over, it had just begun. As Leviathan limped through the debris field, Raylan caught sight of the enemy signature, brief, flickering on the sensor array. A mocking pulse from a distant star. Somewhere out there, the invaders were regrouping, but so was humanity. And in the cold silence after the storm, Raylan swore he would make the stars themselves remember the day humanity fought back. The days that followed became a blur of agony and resolve. Every screen across the battered worlds of humanity replayed the same endless cycle. Burning cities. The moment the sky ruptured. The 8 minutes that changed everything. And then, Commander Raylan Sato's broadcast, a call to arms that echoed through ruined colonies and bloodied starships. Binding survivors with a single, defiant purpose. From Earth's charred orbit to the blackened domes of Mars, the remnants of the Confederation's navy gathered at Lagrange Point 4, a debris-shrouded graveyard where lost ships drifted. Their hulls pitted by enemy fire. No longer the pride of a prosperous age. The fleet was now a ragtag armada, crewed by the desperate, the wounded, and the furious. Raylan stood in the command center of the Leviathan, eyes rimmed red from sleepless hours. Holograms flickered before him, ship counts, casualty tallies, incoming transmissions. The Confederation's high command was gone, lost with Earth's primary network node. But out of chaos, leaders were emerging. Old grudges and chain of command were irrelevant now. One by one, voices joined the makeshift council. Captain Anya Duarte, survivor of the Jovian gunboats, her voice cold as vacuum. Admiral Subramanian, his command ship crippled, but his will unbroken. Dr. Mira Vallon, transmitting from Europa, fragments of alien language and patterns scrolling behind her on the screen. It was Vallon who insisted on a radical course of action. We are not alone in this war. The signals I decrypted, ancient, mathematical, are warnings left by other civilizations. The Zhayr Dominion, our attackers, have destroyed a dozen worlds before us. But their power isn't limitless. There are empires and outcasts who fought them, some still alive, hiding in the star shadows. If we want to survive, we must find them, learn from them, perhaps even forge an alliance. A silence fell. Raylan saw doubt in the eyes of every captain. For centuries, humanity's expansion had been met with suspicion, not friendship. From the galaxy's other sentients, peace had been a fantasy, at best. There were treaties and borders. At worst, skirmishes and unspoken threats. But that was before the 8 minutes. Raylan slammed a fist on the console. We have no choice. We need allies, or this is the end. Our scientists will work with Vallon. Our scouts will search for the worlds the Zhayr burned. Admiral Subramanian, pull every working drive core you can find. We're moving out. The plan took shape in the dark. The fleet would split. Raylan would lead the flagship group toward the Hestian expanse, where a rumor persisted of an exile colony of the Thuriks, once mighty reptilian warriors. Now hunted by the Zhayr, Duarte would take the gunboats to the Orion Rift, seeking contact with the merchant Savan clans of the Chell, aliens famed for trading forbidden tech and information. Subramanian and the bulk of the survivors would defend what was left of Sol, holding the line should the Zhayr return. The days turned to weeks. Wounded ships limped through hyperspace, patching hulls with scavenged metal, manned by crews running on rage and hope. Raylan's group, half a dozen battered destroyers and the Leviathan, passed through the ruined fringe worlds. Ghost cities orbiting cold stars, each marked by the signature Zhayr scorch, total annihilation. Nothing left but glass and whispers. It was on the edge of the Hestian expanse that hope returned. Clad in the iron scales of an ancient enemy, the Thuriks cruiser appeared like a myth, its hull black and jagged, bristling with scars from 100 battles. When Raylan hailed them, the response came after long, tense minutes. A single word, guttural and proud, parley. Aboard the Thuriks ship, Raylan met Warlord Kish, his body a tapestry of ritual scars, his gaze a challenge and a warning. We have heard the song of your suffering. Kish growled, the Zhayr took much from us. Yet we live. What do you seek? Human? Raylan spoke plainly. Alliance, weapons, knowledge. If you stand with us, we will strike back together. If you refuse, we will fight alone. Keshke's eyes narrowed, then a cruel smile split his features. The Zhayr fear only strength. We will see if you possess it. It was not friendship, but the beginning of a pact. The Thuriks would lend a single cruiser, with an honor-bound crew. In exchange, humanity would share intelligence and blood. If the time came, back at Lagrange, the Orion detachment returned, battered but alive. Duarte had convinced the Chell traders to join. At a price. The last of humanity's pre-war memory banks. Vast archives of art and culture, traded for cloaking fields and plasma disruptors. The alliance was fragile, forged from desperation. Thuriks warriors prowled human decks. Mistrust smoldering. Chell operatives set up shadowy tech enclaves. No one slept easy. Then, as the newly allied fleet prepared for its first joint operation, a scouting mission into Zhayr-held space, Drive, Vallon's voice rang out through the Leviathan's intercom. Wild with discovery. I've cracked the Zhayr signals. There's a relay, deep in the Perseus Veil. If we can capture it, we can intercept their war orders. Maybe even turn their own fleets against them. The gamble was set. As the stars wheeled outside the viewports and the battered ships powered up their FTL drives, Raylan looked across his ragtag bridge and saw something new burning in every survivor's eyes. Not just fear, but the spark of vengeance. The Zhayr believed they had shattered humanity in 8 minutes. They had merely awakened something far more dangerous. The fleet cut through hyperspace in a blur of angry stars and streaking darkness. Humanity's battered survivors bound by hope, desperation, and uneasy new alliances. Commander Raylan Sato paced the command deck of the Leviathan, nerves taut as the fleet approached the Perseus Veil, a haunted sector of black nebulae and dying suns. Where the Zhayr Dominion's relay lay hidden within a fortress of twisted metal and pulsing energy. Since the Thurix and Chell joined the cause, the mood aboard every ship was one of wary, uneasy tension. On the mess decks, human engineers and reptilian warriors traded silent, suspicious glances. Chell shadow merchants whispered in corners, always watching, always listening. Old wounds and rivalries simmered beneath the surface, threatening to break open at the first sign of weakness. But necessity bound them all. Every soul in the alliance had lost something, or everything, to the Zhayr. As the ships emerged from hyperspace, the relay fortress loomed before them, a titanic lattice of alien alloy and writhing energy conduits. Orbited by a swarm of Zhayr drones, defensive batteries prowled the structure, searching for the first sign of an intruder. Raylan stood beside Warlord Kish in the Leviathan's war room, a 3D tactical display spinning before them. The Thurix do not fear death. Kish rumbled, flexing his scaled fists. Let us board the relay and claim their heads for trophies. We're not here for trophies. Raylan replied, voice tight. We take that relay intact, or the war is over before it's begun. Dr. Valen, wild-haired and exhausted, piped in from a corner. My infiltration code will let us mask our approach for 7 minutes. After that, the Zhayr will know we're here. 7 minutes to slip through their defenses, board the relay, and seize control. After that, chaos. Chell traders and human tacticians argued over every detail. But the plan was set. Chell ships would feint a trading convoy, jamming local comms. Human and Thurix strike teams would breach the relay, each carrying encrypted spikes to override Zhayr control. The Leviathan and allied cruisers would provide fire support, holding off the inevitable counterattack. The assault began with blinding speed. Chell freighters, disguised as scavengers, drifted toward the relay, deploying clouds of sensor-scrambling chaff. In their wake, a dozen stealth pods shot from the Leviathan, each holding squads of Marines and Thurix warriors, bristling with pulse rifles and ritual blades. They slammed into the relay's hull with a clang that echoed in Raylan's bones. Inside, the corridors were a hell of shifting gravity and strobing lights. Zhayr automatons scuttling from the walls. Humans and Thurix fought back to back, carving a bloody path to the central command node. All the while, Valen whispered into Raylan's ear via comms, guiding them through labyrinthine corridors mapped only by intercepted Zhayr code. Then, as the strike teams reached the control center, a cavernous sphere of holographic light, disaster struck. Admiral Subramanian's voice crackled across the comm, urgency in every syllable. Zhayr reinforcements incoming, 3 dreadnoughts, 15 carriers. They're bypassing our outer line. They're coming for the relay, now. On the relay, the teams worked with frantic speed. Chell techs fused spikes to alien terminals. Thurix blades held the doors against a flood of chittering Zhayr troopers. Raylan's hands shook as he uploaded Valen's code, overriding layer after layer of alien encryption. Outside, the space battle exploded into chaos. The Leviathan and allied cruisers unleashed everything they had, broadside after broadside. For a moment, it seemed the alliance might hold. But fear, old and bitter, reared its head. On the bridge, a Chell captain broke ranks, demanding immediate withdrawal. This is suicide. The humans will doom us all. We will not die for their vengeance. Tensions snapped. Human Marines aimed rifles at Chell crew. Thurix warriors roared in outrage. Aboard the relay, Valen screamed through the comm. We're so close. Hold them. Just a minute longer. Raylan made a choice. He opened the general channel, voice ringing with steel. No more running. Anyone who flees, we mark as traitor. Stand and fight, or be left to the Zhayr. Kish roared approval. The Chell captain spat curses. But his ship fell silent, choosing, in the end, to stay. With one final push, the relay fell. Valen's code took hold, seizing the Zhayr command net. For a heartbeat, the enemy fleet's movements flickered and stilled, caught in digital paralysis. The Alliance was battered and bleeding, ships aflame, trust fractured but not broken, as the Leviathan limped clear, hauling the captured relay in tow. Raylan gazed out at the torn battlefield and the smoldering remains of 100 ships. Victory had come at a terrible price. Alliances had nearly crumbled, but in the ruin, new resolve glimmered. In the shadows beyond the veil, the Zhayr Dominion screamed in fury, marshalling its true might. The next strike would fall not on the edges, but on the heart of every world that dared to defy them. The Alliance, born in pain, tempered in battle, would have to face the storm together, or perish. The captured relay hung in the Leviathan's cargo bay like a wounded animal, its core pulsing with stolen energy, broadcasting fragments of Zhayr code. For days, Dr. Valen and her Chell counterparts worked in shifts, deciphering streams of alien data, searching for patterns, for weaknesses, for hope. Outside, the battered Allied fleet licked its wounds and readied for the next storm. In every corridor and hangar bay, warriors of 3 species walked together, no longer just allies of convenience, but brothers and sisters forged by fire. Raylan Sato slept little. His dreams were haunted by the dead, by the 8 minutes that began it all, by the looming threat of a Zhayr armada now in motion, a retaliation the likes of which no world had ever faced. He met often with Warlord Kish and Captain Duarte, planning contingencies and evacuations, but every plan led to the same conclusion. When the Zhayr counterattack arrived, it would sweep over them like a tidal wave. It was Dr. Valen who found the clue, a fleeting set of coordinates, hidden in ancient Zhayr command packets, referencing a forbidden system on the galactic rim. The Zhayr are afraid of something out there, she said, voice trembling with exhaustion and awe. A weapon, not one of theirs, older. They call it the Star Forge. Legends say it can turn a dying world into a beacon of energy, or unleash storms that shatter fleets. They sealed it away after it nearly destroyed their empire 1,000 years ago. Raylan leaned forward. Can we get there before the Zhayr? If we leave now, and take the risk, but they'll follow. They always follow. Duarte grinned, battle-hardened eyes bright. Let's make this a chase they'll regret. The fleet jumped, through a corridor of shattered stars and dead planets, into a sector lost to myth, the Grave of Suns. As they neared the coordinates, the Star Forge revealed itself, a world-sized construct, orbiting a blue-white giant, its surface etched with cyclopean machines and ancient glyphs, half buried in the planet's crust. Sensors registered energy surges strong enough to bend space. And, at the forge's edge, wreckage, the bones of Zhayr warships, and the lingering echoes of a catastrophe that had scarred the galaxy. We're not the first to seek this weapon, Kish rumbled, tail lashing. Many have died here, but time was short. Even as boarding teams landed on the forge's surface, the first Zhayr dreadnoughts burst from hyperspace, dozens, then hundreds, darkening the stars with their numbers. The Allied fleet fanned out, forming a battered shield wall between the forge and the enemy. On the surface, Valen, Kish, and Raylan led a combined strike team through labyrinths of alien stone, chased by Zhayr strike squads and ancient defense automatons. Each chamber was a test, a gauntlet of puzzles, traps, and deadly relics, all designed to ensure only the worthy could claim the Star Forge's heart. Above, Duarte's voice cut through the din of battle, shields buckling. We can't hold much longer. Raylan pressed on, side by side with Kish, who fought with blade and flame, leaving a trail of broken machines in his wake. Valen deciphered glyphs as she ran, breathless with fear and exhilaration. Chell operatives, shadowy and precise, disabled traps with impossible speed. At last, the team reached the core, a chamber flooded with living light. Its heart a star trapped in crystal, energy streaming into the forge's superstructure. Valen's hands danced over the controls, voice steady for the first time in days. If I link the relay to the forge, I can channel its energy, use it to disrupt the Zhayr fleet. But if I get it wrong, this whole planet could go up in a supernova. Keshke's hand fell heavy on her shoulder. Better to die fighting than kneeling. Raylan nodded grimly. Do it. Outside, the fleet teetered on the edge of annihilation. The Leviathan took hit after hit, shields flickering to nothing. Ships died in fire and silence. And then, A blinding pulse lanced from the star forge, rippling through space-time, catching the Zhayr fleet in a net of pure energy. Dreadnoughts fractured and burned, carriers spun out of control. The Allied fleet, though battered, was spared the worst, protected by the forge's harmonics. Tuned by Valen's code, on the planet's surface, the chamber shook, cracks spidered through the crystal. The forge howled, threatening to tear itself apart. Raylan hauled Valen from the console. "We have to go, now." They ran, the corridors collapsing behind them. Kish roaring in triumph and agony as the Starforge's death cry echoed through their bones. Above, the surviving Zhayr ships fled into hyperspace. Their armada shattered, their dominance broken, for now. The Allied fleet limped away, carrying the wounded and the fallen, leaving the Starforge's ashes behind. But in every eye, human, Thurix, or Chell, a new hope glimmered. For the first time since the 8 minutes of terror, the galaxy knew the Zhayr could be beaten. But the cost had only begun to reveal itself. The Starforge's destruction echoed across the galaxy. In the aftermath, every world that had cowered in the Zhayr's shadow felt the tremor. Hope where there had been only fear. And the knowledge that the invincible could bleed. On the battered decks of the Leviathan, Commander Raylan Sato drifted between exhaustion and awe. The Allied fleet, once a ragtag collection of survivors, now moved through the stars with new purpose. They limped from the grave of suns, engines patched and hulls scarred. But every soul aboard knew what they had accomplished. A legend forged not from myth, but from fire, sacrifice, and the iron will to survive. As the fleet regrouped at a secret refuge, an ancient asteroid stronghold used once by Chell rebels, leaders of the Alliance gathered for the first Council of Peace. Warlord Kish stood, scales marked with fresh scars, his posture not just proud, but almost protective of the humans and Chell around him. Captain Duarte represented the battered, but unbroken, human command. The Chell, always elusive, sent their speaker, a figure cloaked in light and shadow. Dr. Valen presented the final reports. The Zhayr armada had scattered, fleeing to the galaxy's far reaches. Their network was crippled, their war machine in disarray, and their reputation, once as inevitable as gravity, lay shattered. Yet it was not total victory. In the ashes of war, old feuds and new dangers simmered. Thousands of Zhayr worlds remained unconquered, their warlords scheming for revenge. The galaxy, once tightly gripped by a single tyrant hand, now bristled with uncertainty and opportunity. Raylan addressed the council, his voice steady but weary. "We will not become what we fought. Humanity didn't survive just to raise new empires on broken bones. The Alliance must hold, by honor, by memory, by what we lost in those 8 minutes. And what we built after." Warlord Kish grunted, laying a heavy hand on Raylan's shoulder. "Let the Zhayr remember their lesson. Let all the stars remember the price of tyranny. From this day, our blood is mingled, may it be for peace or for vengeance. If peace should fail," the Chell speaker whispered, "we are merchants, not kings, but we have found something rare, a future where trade is chosen. Not forced. We will honor our word. We will watch the shadows. And keep your secrets." In the months that followed, the Alliance held an uneasy peace, but peace nonetheless. Wounded worlds began to rebuild. Survivors returned to shattered homes, and new settlements rose among the ruins. Memorials appeared on every Allied world, their stones inscribed with the names of the lost, and the date of the invasion's beginning and end. 8 minutes. Legends grew quickly. Songs were sung of the Leviathan, the Thurix berserkers, the Chell shadow traders, and Dr. Valen, who cracked the Zhayr's code and tamed the forge. Children who had hidden during the bombardments learned, for the first time, what hope felt like. But across the stars, threats lingered, new warlords seeking power, old secrets stirring in dark places, the remnants of Zhayr plotting in exile. On the bridge of the Leviathan, Raylan stood with Valen and Kish, watching a new fleet assemble, ships of 100 worlds, flying not under a single banner, but many. They were not an empire, not conquerors, they were guardians of the peace they'd bought with blood. Raylan gazed at the stars, memory of 8 minutes of terror forever carved into his soul, but also the 8 minutes when humanity found its strength, and the galaxy was changed, forever. As long as we remember, we will not fall. As long as we stand together, the The stars will never belong to tyrants again. The bridge lights dimmed. The new fleet set course for the unknown. And so began the age after the invasion, an age not of despair, but of infinite, fragile hope, echoing through every corner of a galaxy forever marked by 8 minutes of fire and the unyielding will to fight back.